Non-durable goods increased 3.6% compared with an increase of 0.7%. Service increased 2.1%, the same increase as in Q1. Real non-residential fixed investment decreased 0.6% in Q2, in contrast to an increase of 1.6% in Q1. Investment in non-residential structures decreased 1.6% in Q2, compared with a decrease of 7.4% in Q1. Investment in equipment decreased 4.1% in contrast with an increase of 7.4% in Q1. Residential fixed income increased 6.6% compared with an increase of 10.1% in Q1. Real exports of goods and services increased 5.3% in Q2 in contrast to a decrease of 6% in Q1. Real imports of goods and services increased 3.5% compared with an increase of 7.1% in Q1. Real federal government consumption expenditures and gross investment decreased 1.1% in Q2 compared with an increase of 1.1% in Q1. National defense decreased 1.5% in contrast to an increase of 1% in Q1. Consumption expenditures and gross investment increased 2% in contrast to a decrease of 0.8% in Q1. Changes in real private investment subtracted 0.08% points from the second quarter in real GMP after adding 0.87% in Q1. Private business increased inventories at $110 billion in second quarter, followed by an increase of $112.8 billion in Q1 and $78 billion back in Q4. Real final sales of domestic product, that is GMP, less changes in private inventories, increased 2.4% in Q2 in contrast to a decrease of 0.2 in Q1. Gross domestic product. Real gross domestic product purchases by U.S. residents of goods and services increased 2.1% in Q2 compared with an increase of 2.5% in Q1. Disposition of personal income. Current dollar personal income increased $145 billion in Q2 compared with $118.9 billion in Q1. The acceleration in personal income primarily reflects upturns in personal interest income in farm proprietors' income that were partially offset by deacceleration in government social benefits and in personal dividend income. Personal current taxes increased $26.3 billion in Q2 compared with an increase of $60.2 billion in Q1. Tax day. Disposable income increased to $118.6 billion, up 3.7% in Q2 compared with an increase of $58.7 billion in Q1. Real disposable personal income increased 1.5% compared with an increase of 3.8% in Q1. Personal outlays increased $161.9 billion in Q2, contrast with a decrease of $10.3 billion in Q1. Personal savings, disposable personal income less personal outlays was $640.1 billion in Q2 compared with $683.3 billion in Q1. The personal saving rate, personal savings as a percentage of disposable income, was 4.8% in Q2 compared with 5.2% in Q1. For comparison of personal savings, the BEA's national income and product accounts with personal savings in the Federal Reserve Board's financial accounts of the U.S. and data range in net worth. Well, we won't do that. The current dollar GMP The market value of production of goods and services in the U.S. increased 4.4%, 191.2 billion in Q2, to a level of 17,804.5 billion in Q1. Current dollar GMP increased 0.8%, or 33.3 billion there. Revision of first quarter for the first quarter of 2015, real GMP is now estimated to have increased 0.6%. In the previous published estimate, first quarter was estimated to have decreased 0.2%. The 0.8% upward revision to the percent in the first quarter reflects upward revision to non-residential fixed investment, to private inventory investment, to residential fixed investment, and to federal government spending that were partially offset by downward revision to PCE. So basically, looking at it here, the revised was 0.6. It used to be a negative 0.2. So thus, we now have 0.8. Uh-oh. Second here. My pointer went out. Annual revision of national income and product accounts. The revision reflect the results of annual revision of national income and product accounts. These revisions, usually made each July, incorporate newly available and more comprehensive data source. Because of I won't get into too much of that, but the second upward presentation of transfers and tax flows between the U.S. and the rest of the world resulted in revision to foreign transaction estimates back to 2099. From 2011 to 2014, real GMP increased at an average rate of 2%, and that's very important for the markets to know. In the previous published estimates, real GMP had increased an average of 2.3% for the fourth quarter of 2011 to the first quarter of 2015. Real GMP increased an average annual rate of 2%. In the previous published estimate, real GMP had increased at an annual rate of 2.2%. The percentage change in real GMP was revised down 0.1% from 2012. For 2012 was revised down 0.7% for 2011, and unrevised for 2014. For 2012, downward revision to personal income expenditure to state and local government fixed data were partially offset by an upward revision to non-residential fixed investment. For 2013, the largest contributors to the downward revision were downward revisions to state and local government spending and to residential fixed investment. For 2014, upward revisions in the PCE was offset by down revisions to state and local government spending, to federal government spending, and inventory. The revisions to annual estimates typically reflect partially offset revisions to the quarter within the year. For 2012, the annual rate of change in GDP was revised down 2%, 2 percentage points from the third quarter. This is the rate of change for the first and second quarters revised up 0.4% and 0.3% respectively. The rate of growth for the fourth quarter was unrevised. For 2013, downward revision of 0.8%. A point for the first quarter and 0.7% for the second quarter, and 1.5 percentage points for the third quarter were partially offset by upward revision of 0.3% for the fourth quarter. For 2014, upward revision of 1.2 percentage points for the first quarter were offset by down revision of 0.7 percentage points for the third quarter, and 0.1% point for the fourth quarter, and second quarter was unrevised. The first quarter of 2012 through the first quarter of 2015, the average revised without regard to percentage change in real GNP was 0.7%. The revision changed the direction of growth of GNP for only one quarter, the first quarter of 2015. For the expansion for the second quarter of 2009 to the first quarter of 2015, real GNP increased an average annual rate of 2.1%, or 0.1% less than previously published. Current dollar GNP was estimated down for all 3 years at 7.9 billion, or less than 0.1%. For 2012, 104.9 billion, or 6.6% for 2013, and 70.9 billion, or 0.4% for 2014. Gross domestic income and statistical discrepancies. From 2011-2014, real GNP increased an average of 2.4%. The previously published rate for GDI had increased an annual average rate of 2.6% from the fourth quarter of 2011 the first quarter of 2015. Real GDI increased an average annual rate of 3.2% in the previous published estimate, and real GDI, that is gross domestic income, has increased at an average annual rate of 2.7%. The statistical discrepancy is current dollar GNP less current dollar GDI, GDP measurement, final expenditure, the sum of consumer spending, private investment, net imports, and government spending, and GDI measures the income earned in the production of GDP. In concept, GDP is equal to GDI. In practice, they differ because they're estimated using different source data and different methods. As a result, the annual revision, the statistical discrepancy as a percent of GDP was revised at negative 1.3% for 2012, was revised up negative 0.13 to negative 0.11 for 13, and revised down for negative 1% to negative 1.2% for 14. The average of GDP and GDI is a supplemental measurement of U.S. economic activity. In real inflation-adjusted terms, this means an increase in an average annual rate of 2.2% for 2011 to 2014. Gross domestic purchases for the fourth quarter of 2011 to the first quarter of 2015. The average annual increase in price index of gross domestic purchases was revised up from 1.1% to 1.2%. Personal consumption expenditures from the fourth quarter of 2011 to the first quarter of 2015, the average annual rate of increase in the price index PCE was 1.1% and 0.2%. These points higher than previously estimated. The increase in core PCE price, excluding food and energy, also was revised up 0.1% from 1.4% to 1.5%. revisions to income and savings rate. National income was revised down 7.6 billion.